Hi, I'm Gayle Halliwell. I'm an artist on the WAVE Studio Tour. I'm at Studio 44. And I'm going to demonstrate for you today the stunning effects you can get from acrylic inks in my demonstration, Acrylic Inks, Great Beginnings. So welcome. So what do you need to work with acrylic inks? Well, the first thing you need are some acrylic inks. And I have a few here to show you, but you really only need 3 primary colors and a convenience color burnt umber and black, which you may or may not choose. I need a surface to paint on. Today I'm using watercolor paper, but you could use Stonehenge or printer's paper or a variety of other surfaces because acrylic inks will adhere to lots of surfaces. So what are acrylic inks? Well, they're a super fine pigment suspended in an extremely fluid acrylic emulsion. So they are acrylics, but they are very liquidy. And so why would you use acrylic inks? 3 V's. The viscosity, extremely fluid, just like water. And so they react with water. The ability for versatility is the 2nd V. You can use them in a variety of different ways. You can use them like watercolors, you can use them like acrylics, and you can use them like everything in between. And the 3rd V is the vibrancy. The one thing about acrylic ink is as you bring water and introduce water into it, you do not lose vibrancy. They are extremely vibrant. So they lend themselves well to topics that are vibrant. And today our topic that we're going to use is fall leaves. So what do I need for a palette? Well, today I'm going to use this palette, which is just a china plate. You can use anything for a palette. I often use a seal top palette, which has wells. I'm going to use 2 brushes, one for washing and one for painting with. You can use round or flat, whatever your preference is. A fine pencil to draw at first, and I need a pointy stick or implement to make some lines after I've painted. 2 buckets of water, one for clean water and one for washing my brushes. And now, the key to fall leaves is using leaves. So I collect leaves and I keep them so that I've got a variety of different kinds of leaves. And today I've chosen oak leaves and I'm going to use those as my tracers. So no drawing skills required. So the first thing we have to do is imagine a branch. And you could get a real branch, or you could just imagine what would be a nice branch to take across your page. So with a very fine pencil, I'm going to take a branch across my page. It's going to be variable, maybe tapering just a little bit, and I think I'll add a secondary branch coming from that, just so that I've got some interest perhaps. And we start first with clear water, and I'm going to, for a branch, take clear water just down the center of that branch that I first drew. Just running a bead of water down that branch, and then the second branch, not quite all the way to the first branch. Next thing is now to go into my burnt umber. I just have a little bit on the tip. And I'm gonna put that burnt umber along the edge so that it bleeds up into the water. And I want the darkest edge of the branch at the bottom so that it looks like there is light perhaps coming from the top. And then the center of the branch, the lightest, so that it looks like it is round. It has that round. So I'm going to run that burnt umber down both sides of the branch. And you can see the magic of water and acrylic ink. You'll get some darker spots and some lighter spots, and that is exactly what you want, because as we know, if you imagine or observe in nature what a branch might look like, you will see that it is variable. Now I'm going back into my water because now I want to finish off bringing those 2 edges of the branch together. And I might want some places lighter, some places darker. I might want to drag some of that dark up a little higher, especially to create kind of a node or 2 where my leaves would stem from. So I have a pretty dark spot here. I'm just gonna take a thirsty brush. That means a brush that I've dried on my cloth, and just pull some back out. While it's still wet, I can do that. And if I want to create nodes for my leaves to stem from, I can just tip some in, blend it around a little bit with the tip of my brush, darken that last little bit coming off the page, add a little water to drag it around so it blends nicely. And it does. Acrylic ink just blends so well. And you can see I'm just touching the paper with it. Where this other branch comes out behind, I still have a bit of water there, but I'm going to freshen it with the clean water. And right where it comes out, it should be the darkest, where the two branches meet. So I'm going to start there and drag my burnt umber. And I don't want this branch to be quite as prominent, so I'm not making it as dark overall. Making sure the underside and the top side are just a bit darker than the center of the branch. Move your paper around if you need to. And now you let it dry or turn to your hairdryer. So now we have a branch, or a semblance of one, which is great. And you can choose to paint on it the way you originally drew it. You might decide it's going to be vertical or it's going to be a different horizontal. It's up to you. I like it this way, after I've seen how it turns out. So now I take my leaves, and I have leaves that I have collected. I'm going to choose oak for this demonstration. And I'm just going to place an odd number of oak leaves on my branch until I have what I think is a pleasing composition. So I'm going to start, I think I'll start here with one, and I'm just going to lightly trace around that that leaf, placing it near my branch. Some can come out from under your branch, and an odd number is always more interesting. So if I like that particular leaf and I like the size of it, maybe it has a partner. And so we're going to put a partner as if they're coming out from the other side of the branch. And I don't like that it's going to touch this branch, so I'm going to shorten that end of it just so it doesn't touch, and then go back to finishing my tracing on that one. So those are my first two, and then I continue until I have them all traced. It's also good to have perhaps a leaf or two that are coming into your picture or leaving your picture, coming from a different branch perhaps. And so I'm going to fill this space with one of those. We'll use this one. And perhaps coming from the same side will be, I don't want exactly the same angle or the same size, so I think we'll use this leaf because it's a little bit of a different shape and a little smaller. Oh, 2, 4, 6, I need 7, so here's a perfect opportunity for me here to make this leaf come from that spot. And using real leaves gives you way more variation, way better than using other tracers or those kinds of things. Okay, I'm finished with my tracers now. I've got what I want. I can actually begin to paint leaves. And the beauty of acrylic inks is the vibrancy, and that's what we're going to get. So we're going to start with water. And I'm going to paint most of this leaf with water, not right to the edge, but most of this leaf is going to get painted with water. A good amount of water actually, so that you can see the water beating up on the surface once you've finished adding your water, but not quite to all the edges. Then the color that we begin with is yellow. Yellow is going to be the color that we make our oranges from. You can see what happens the moment I touch the water with the yellow. The yellow immediately fills the pool of water. Now I'm taking it to the edge because I know that I want those edges to be orange or perhaps green, depending on what I do next. And I'm just taking a little bit of acrylic ink onto the tip of my brush. I don't know how many paintings I've done, dozens and dozens, with these same small bottles of acrylic ink. They last a very long time and they go a very long way because of the vibrancy and viscosity, the low viscosity of these. Now I'm going to put a little yellow down here because I want all three colors on that stem. A stem is usually quite dark, and so I know if I add all three colors of my primaries, I'm going to get something quite dark. So next I'm going into red, because now I want to make those red and orange edges that I'm going to get. And so I'm careful to go around where my tracing was to get that shape on the outside edge of the leaf, to get that nice and tidy. But on the inside I'm going to be way messier. I'm just going to touch it and try and make it very blendy, which is an acrylic term. An official acrylic term. No, just kidding. Okay, so let's add some of that red in. And if I find that my red isn't giving me enough movement into orange, I can add some water into it and just touch the edges of where the red is, and it will begin to pull away from the red and move out into an orange. And you can see that? Hopefully you can see all of that right there. I'm going to go back to red for a little bit more deeper red just on this top edge, because I really like the edges to have definition and attention. So there we are. Okay, and I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of red into there. Now I'm switching to my blue. And my blue is going to give me the green that I want by adding my blue over top. And really, it could be any blue. It could be any yellow. It could be any green. I find with acrylic inks, unless you're really trying to mimic something in nature, a basic blue, an ultramarine kind of blue, and a neutral red and a vibrant yellow are enough of a palette. And so maybe even just a few little spots where green is staying on that leaf, especially coming down here where it's dark. And now once I get into that dark, and you can see that I've made that, I can use that dark. You know how leaves sometimes have little dots of dark on them, especially oak leaves if you've ever looked very closely at them. And sometimes the edges are quite dark, so I'm just going to touch those edges to give them that variation, give them a bit of that depth and darkness. That's all. That's it. Kind of like that leaf. I don't know how you feel about it, but it needs the veins. You can see on the back of the leaf how the veins are in nature, and that's what you want to do for your painting. So while it's still wet, you simply start at the stem and give your long one up, and you're just kind of scratching in, just not too much pressure, a little bit of pressure. I don't know if you can see the indentation in the video, but I'm getting an indentation, and as it dries, you will see quite a bit of indentation. And I could make little bracts that stem from those primary veins, give it a little bit more interest. And find a spot that I like there. And then clean my stick for the next one. Now I can see a couple spots I might want to just touch up before I leave that leaf as the acrylic ink is drying. So with a clean brush then, I'm touching my red and just going in to give those edges the definition I want them to have. And once you're satisfied, move away and move to a different side of the page to work on the next one so that you don't get any bleeding. And that's our first leaf. Now, all we have to do is repeat. So you can see how this one is dried and drying, I should say, but how we see those lovely scratches becoming veins, and this one that is wet will dry, and you can compare the two and see how it has lost very little vibrancy in drying compared to regular acrylics. So now we just have to rinse and repeat. So now we've finished all of our leaves, and we have this beautiful, vibrant painting of fall leaves that requires a background. So there are several ways to do a background, and one of them is to do a wash, where you simply wet the paper and wash with very weakened, very watered down acrylic inks. And that's what I've made here for a wash. I have used my blue and yellow to make the green that's in here exactly the same. I don't use a green, I make it from the same blue and yellow and my red. And so I made these watered down just by adding clear water and a little drop of color, and I made a very watered down solution. So on this painting, I wet the entire background with water, just going around as best as I could my leaves. Another way is for me to have started with a background color, such as this watercolor card that I did a maple leaf on. And these are sets you can buy with matching envelopes. This has a lovely green background which suits itself well to a leaf. And then I have a card that I can give to a friend. And then the third way that you can deal with a background is to use black. That's why I said the black is optional. And you can see on that black background how much the fall leaves pop. So my composition today, I'm going to choose to do the black. So here we are adding the black, and I am just painting around. The black is certainly the least forgiving method, and what I recommend you try is try the wash first. And in fact, I'll do a wash in one corner of this before I finish all my black, just to demonstrate for you, because when that wash is dry, and if I say to myself, ooh, I don't like it, guess what? I could go over it in black, and you would never see that wash. Okay, so that's how the black is going to look. Now I'm going to just demonstrate that wash to you over in this corner so that you have a chance to understand how that would look. Okay, so taking my clean water and a clean brush, I'm going to paint around the my composition as best as I can with a bit of water. Not quite as thick as wet as what you did in the inside of your leaf before you put the yellow on, but I'm still going to do that. Still going to get some wet in there. Get my paper a little bit wet because that's going to help me with the flowing. And if I have a spot where I got water and I don't want it, I can always pick that water back up. It's not going to lighten my leaf because it's permanent. It will not move. It's acrylic. Okay, so I've got it wet, and now I have my light washes made up simply with water and a little tiny drop of the blue and a bigger drop of the yellow, and that's how I got my green. So here I am in my green, and I'm going to touch it on, and you can see how it begins to flow. And then I can get a little closer to my leaves so I can bring the background right up to the leaf and the branch and in the spots there. But if I happen to overlap into my leaf or branch, it's not going to change it because this wash is so light, it's not as dark as the painting of the leaf or the branch, and it is much waterier, so it's not going to cover it. Whereas the black will cover because I'm using the black straight. You saw me do that without water. And whereas a wash, we get that water on so we get the flow. So I can take my green background that I'm making here, and I can drop other colors into it. So I'm going to grab some yellow from my original palette and just drop some dots of yellow into it, and maybe some dots of red, just to give it some of them over top of each other to make them more orange. And then I can make them blendy by using the water. So here I am with just the clean water, and I'm going to move them around a little bit so they're not quite so defined, quite so dotty looking. Get them to join together a little bit. Clean that brush if it needs, if it gets too much red on it. And drag some of them around just to suggest color in the background. And then maybe just some straight water. And this is what the wash will look like and how you will do it. If I decide, oh my gosh, I've got way too much red there, I don't like it. Again, while it's wet, I can pick that back up. So I've now picked that up. I'll go back to my green, my very light green. And if I think, you know, it's too light, I need a darker green, I'm gonna put a dab of blue in there and a dollop of yellow, and we'll mix that up and give it a little bit more green so that we have a darker green. And in fact, that green, I can drop the green in to give it some variation, and it blends and looks quite natural in the background. And so here we have a background coming along with a light wash of those colors, the same colors that are in the leaves. So now it's just a matter of filling in the black for me to finish this one. I hope you enjoy acrylic inks and find your journey through them. So take care. Have fun until the next time. I'm Gayle Halliwell. I'm a WAVE artist, Studio 44 on the Interlake WAVE Artist Studio Tour.